All right, so JR, you posted a review of, well, actually what I'm using right now, the Dell Venue 10 7000. It's an Android tablet with a keyboard dock. You can kind of see it in the over-the-shoulder shot, and you have it on your side as well.
There it is. Yes, yes, indeed.
Yeah, so interesting device. I'm going to be recording a review this week and it's going to be in next week's before you buy. But I'm curious to know what you thought of it. I've had a lot of fun with it so far. What do you think?
You know, I've really liked it. So this is kind of the bigger brother to the Venue 8 7000, which was a more standard tablet, but a really nice tablet, a really nicely done one. But this one adds in, it's got the little, we were talking about Lenovo earlier, very reminiscent of Lenovo's designs, this cylinder base on one end, which it's very unusual. It's not like your average tablet. And, you know, for me, it's been a really positive change. The cylinder really changes the way you use it. When you hold it in a vertical orientation, I'll show you here, you kind of hold it more like a magazine. It gives you a nice grip to hold on to, and it feels very natural. But then where the real power is, of course, if you go landscape, it kind of serves as a base, and if you got it on your lap, you can kind of pivot. But the real power is in the keyboard attachment, which really is almost like a piece of the same system. It's not just like a dock, it is part of it. And it's nice to use. So let's see if I can get this on camera where you can see. So it just snaps in. It's held in magnetically. And then at that point, it's pretty much like a laptop. I mean, it swivels back and forth. It's held in very securely. You know, if you're tapping the screen, it's not going to go away. But it's still easy to get out. You just kind of go past the farthest point where it'll pivot, and you snap it right out. And with it together, as evidenced by the fact, Jason, that you've been using it for this whole show, I mean, you use it pretty much like a laptop. It's got backlit keys. They're really nice to type on. You know, the typical tablet keyboard is kind of like passable. You know, you can make it work, but it's not something you're going to love typing on. I've been using this. So I posted my review last week, and I've got the device for another few days. I'm sending it back this coming weekend. So I've been continuing to use it just to get some longer term impressions. And, you know, I haven't been using it as my sole computing device. It's not quite at that level for the work I need to do, but it makes a really nice secondary around the house computer where, you know, if I'm sitting on the couch, I use it as a great tablet where the hardware is top notch. It's got a fantastic display, great speakers, really comfy to hold. And then when I want to pound out an email or a long text message or edit a document or what have you, I just drop it in here and boom, I've got, you know, a functioning laptop running Android. Oh, and I should point out too, the other cool thing is that you can flip it backwards and use it as a stand. So if you're just watching, you know, video or browsing around on the internet, actually that's what I've been, pretty much every time I use it, I sit it in the stand and just have it kind of setting on my lap because rather than holding it, you just got a nice stand. Yeah.
No, I like it a lot, actually, and the display is really nice. The keyboard, you know, the fault always, I think, with these keyboards is kind of like, how do the keys feel? How is the touchpad? The touchpad is always such a weakness, and I gotta say, yeah, I'm really happy with this one. Now, I did this backwards. I didn't realize you could do that, so I haven't done that yet. It just pops out the same way, doesn't it? Okay.
Yeah, and then you could do it in like a tent mode too, which I haven't really found a need to, but I guess maybe some people would.
Yeah, because
and
you
then it closes all the way down too. Yeah, and you can close it all the way down, and it just like a travel case. It just looks like a laptop. And the nice thing too, some of these you see, including the Nexus 9 keyboard that you have to charge, which the Nexus 9 one you don't really have to charge much, but this one you don't think about it at all. It's just powered via Bluetooth from the tablet. So theoretically, that could take a draw on the tablet's power. I haven't been able to notice it at all. I mean, it's pretty minimal.
Yeah. Yeah, and the backlight on the keys are really I mean, definitely the star of the show on this is the keyboard dock and how well it integrates with the keyboard.
That's a really nice design. The cylinder reminds me of remember those old Sony tablets when Sony was making tablets again where there was the one that was like the wedge that had a rounded edge like this, so you almost it forced you to hold it like a magazine. Remember, it had that flipped over. Yeah, so it reminds me a lot of that. But that dock is really cool. That's really neat. I mean, I've been using my Nexus 9 with a Bluetooth keyboard, mocking up basically this. But this would be great for traveling and for it seems small enough, slimline enough that you can use it on a plane without much problem with the space on the
it's definitely a compact sort of approach.
Cool.
But it's a large screen Android tablet, of which I feel like we're not seeing a whole lot of those these days. They've kind of all centered around the 7-inch form factor. And, you know, a part of that is just that Android tablets of that size, the larger size, haven't done so well because they haven't been great experiences. But I've actually been pretty happy with Lollipop and the kind of keyboard integration with this larger form factor. There are some weird things, like sometimes you'll launch an app, and even though it runs in landscape mode, it might have like an onboarding kind of walkthrough that forces you vertical. And when it's in the keyboard dock, like that literally means you're putting your keyboard to the side like this in order to do it, or looking sideways in order to do it. So the weird little things like that pop up every once in a while, but
yeah, which to be fair is a fault of the developer, not the tablet.
No, fair enough.
The user, it's still, you know, it still is what it is.
If the tutorial was meant for a phone and it's vertical oriented, then the developer needs to know this might be used on a tablet, or set that restriction or whatever. What is the price point on it? Do we know how much it is, or
what is the price? Is
wait, I've got it here.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you just get the tablet, it's 500 for 16 gig, 550 rounding up, 550 for 32 gig. When you start getting in the keyboard dock, you go 630, 16 gig, 679, 680 basically for 32 gig. There is a $50 off coupon if you buy it from Dell, a coupon code, which it's really long. There's no point in saying it out loud, but you can search for it. If you look at my reviews, got it in there too. So if you're going to buy it from Dell, it's supposed to be good through the end of July. That knocks $50 off. So it's not cheap, but for a 10-inch tablet, you know, it's about where you would expect. It's not outrageous. It's not cheap, but it's in the right kind of ballpark.
I mean, it's similarly priced to an iPad, to like a current gen iPad price. North of 500 is a little pricey though, but what you get for it is pretty neat. But it's, you know, kind of hard when there are Chromebooks that are out there that are selling for $250. It's kind of interesting to see that, you know, here we are again with that Android versus Chromebook.
Yeah, you know, which I've actually thought a lot about as I've been using this, which is just the idea of like if Chrome OS was on here, you wouldn't bat an eye, right? Like you wouldn't flinch. It seems like it would be a Chrome laptop, but yet it's running Android. Just makes me wonder if at a certain point, you know, the mystical like convergence of Android and Chrome OS happens to the point to where you could have something like this and decide, actually, I want to run in Chrome OS mode versus running in Android mode. Because there, you know, Android just as an OS in general, I still, even though this is a pretty good experience, there are still things in there that make me feel like Android is not a laptop first type OS. You know what I mean? Whereas Chrome OS does feel that way. So there would possibly be some benefit to being able to select between those. So I don't know.
Yeah,
we'll see.
It's an interesting distinction. I mean, this has its benefits, but it also has its drawbacks. Like if you're doing hardcore productivity, you're going to do better on a Chromebook or you know, whatever works for you, a Windows laptop, a MacBook, whatever. I think some people could get by with this as a primary computing device. People who are a little more casual, who maybe, you know, just send an email here and there, surf the web, write a couple of documents. But once you get into heavy duty multitasking, you know, it would be very difficult for me to use this in my day-to-day work. But around the house for traveling, it's great. And I think one thing worth mentioning, because this is a big part of what has made a lot of the 10-inch Android tablets out there right now not so great, is that the software on this, going back to what we were talking about before, pure Android, unnecessary modifications, you're looking at pretty much the stock Android Lollipop interface. Dell has made a few little tweaks here and there, but it's not much. It's, you know, they've added in a couple of custom apps, but you know, software-wise, it's really nice to use, which for me makes all the difference in the world, because, you know, some of those Samsung tablets, the recent ones, what they did on the 10-inch form in particular, it was just painful to look at, you know. And having nice software makes a big difference in user experience, you know, as far as I'm concerned.
I completely agree. Yeah, it's a super vanilla kind of approach to Lollipop. Like you say, a few installed apps, but that's not really, you know, messing with the experience at all.
Yeah.
So cool. So that is the Dell Venue 10 7000. And yeah, check out JR's review on Computer World, and then I'm going to have a full review in next week's Before You Buy, recorded at the end of this week. So.